So yesterday I made a video about my magnum opus, the Hanukkah spelling alignment chart. And it actually got kind of more attention than I was expecting. It was basically a shitpost. But then y'all had a lot of questions. So ask and ye shall receive. This is a Hanukkah spelling deep dive. Hebrew is in the Semitic language family. And like its Semitic siblings, such as Arabic, Amharic, Tigrinya, just to name a few, it's a root pattern language. In English, we change the meanings of words with affixes. So you can add the prefix re to the word do and get redo, and you can add the suffix ness to the word well and get wellness. In both those examples, well and do are what a linguist would call a root. In root pattern languages, roots are actually discontinuous sets of consonants with spaces in between for vowels to be plugged in depending on what word you're trying to say. In Arabic, for example, the sequence KTB forms a root that generally has to do with writing. And you can plug vowel patterns, known in linguistics as transfixes, into that consonant sequence and get words like kataba, which means he wrote, or kitab, which means book. In the Hebrew word Hanukkah, the root consonant pattern is comprised of the Hebrew letters het, nun, and kaf. The same way that KTB consonant sequence in Arabic, that KTB root, is used to form words generally about writing, this consonant sequence, this root in Hebrew, is used to form words about dedication or consecration. And the vowel transfix consists of an unspecified vowel that changes based on its sound environment, an u, and an a. In Hebrew, this vowel sequence, this transfix, combines with roots to create verbal nouns, similar to how the suffix ment in English would combine with the verb announce to create the verbal noun announcement. Even though the pronunciation conventions for rapid natural speech in English end up changing the quality of these vowels a lot, such as reducing u to I or a, as in Hanukkah or Hanukkah, the letters A and U still represent the most obvious, most faithful matches to the Hebrew. So the letters A and U are pretty constant across English spellings of the word Hanukkah. They're always there, that doesn't really change. But the Hebrew letters het, nun, and kaf can be transliterated into the Roman alphabet in a variety of ways. And there are interesting historical and linguistic motivations for each of those transliteration variants. Het can be transliterated as CH or H. The linguistic motivation for the initial C transliteration variant is to differentiate the English sound h from the h sound present in Hebrew. But declining to make that differentiation by only using the letter H is also a very common choice, and for good reason, I think. The h sound that the Hebrew letter het makes isn't present in English, and most of the time people pronounce loanwords. Those are vocabulary items that come from a foreign language. Most of the time people pronounce loanwords with whatever sounds are available in their native language. The word Hanukkah is no different. Most English speakers approximate that sound just with the normal H sound, the h, that's present in English. Nun can be transliterated with a single N or a double N. There's no phonological reason from Hebrew for doubling the N, but there may be a small benefit in terms of English spelling. English spelling is a nightmare, but double consonants after an A often indicate that it's supposed to be pronounced ah as opposed to ah. Kaf can either be transliterated as single or double K. In Biblical Hebrew, the k sound was actually pronounced twice, which linguists call gemination. So while the double K doesn't preserve any modern phonological distinction, it does have a historical reason for being there. The optional final H is also historical. It's a direct transliteration of the way the word is written in Hebrew, but even as recent as Biblical Hebrew, that was a sound that was no longer pronounced. So the 3,000-year-old Hebrew spelling actually reflects an even older pronunciation. Taking into account only the transliteration variants we've discussed, there are 16 possible accepted spellings of Hanukkah. But there are only 9 squares on a traditional D&D alignment chart, which is why there were some spellings missing. I collected some data on the commonness of each of those 16 spelling variants by doing a Google search for each one and then recording the number of results. I didn't take into account any additional information, such as the prestige, authority, or reliability of the pages where the spellings occurred. Because in case you're new here, I'm not really about being prescriptive. Come on, get with the program. I'm a descriptive linguist. For the purposes of this analysis, I treated all attestations equally. By far, the most common spelling was Hanukkah. In fact, it was so predominant that it actually made it difficult to create a pie chart that was high enough resolution to see some of the least common spellings. By far, the least common transliteration variant was the double N for the Hebrew nun. all double N Hanukkah spellings counted together made up only 2.4% of the total number of Hanukkah spellings across the 16 variations we're looking at. In contrast, the final H transliteration variant was extremely common. So much so that even when you removed the most common spelling, which does include a final H, spellings of Hanukkah with this variant still made up 68.1% of the remaining attestations. The initial C transliteration variant for the Hebrew letter chet was somewhat common. Spellings with this transliteration variant made up about 14.2% of total attestations, which isn't actually that much considering that there is an initial C in the second most common spelling, Chanukah. The double K transliteration variant for the Hebrew letter Kaf was also extremely common. Even when I excluded the most common spelling of Hanukkah, which does include a double K, spellings with this transliteration variant still made up 21.4% of remaining attestations. There are some transliteration variants that I haven't discussed, and they're most common in non-English languages that also use the Roman alphabet, and that's where you might get X or KH for the Hebrew letter chet, or Q for Kaf. Additionally, some spellings are more pronunciation motivated than direct transliterations, and that's where you might see some variation even in the vowels that in English spellings tend to be pretty consistent. The letter J is also an occasional transliteration of chet, and that's how you get joke spellings floating around the internet, like just the first name Janice suggested as a possible way to spell Hanukkah. I hope that's everything you've ever wanted to know about how Hanukkah is spelled in English.